Welcome, everyone. We are grateful that thou hast lended thy ear to the Round Table podcast. The Knights of the Round Table intend to discuss modern issues through the eternal wisdom of the Bible and encourage others in these uncertain times. Consider following us and sharing the podcast with as many brothers in Christ as possible, and most importantly, enjoy thyselves.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Round Table Podcast. We are joined with Nate Johnson. So,
Indeed. I'm back.
we're going to today be talking about a pretty serious subject, probably one of the more important ones that we'll have on this podcast, and that is modern media, specifically like music and social media, and the negative influence it can have on people. So, I think we'll just start out with the whole fact that Nate, you mentioned something about like an app that newly came out. I totally just now forgot the name of.
If it's not new now, if I say it's new, your entire watch list would absolutely annihilate me.
Cool.
Just saying. But yes, what he's referring to is we were talking about just social media in general, and then we got into the discussion of, do I have any? No, I personally do not. The closest thing I have is Discord, which you may qualify as a social media platform. I know that some people do, some others don't. I personally do not. But we were also talking about BeReal, because like normal social media, you think about it, right? Like you got, let's just use Facebook or Snapchat as prime examples, right? So what you do is you take a picture, right, of yourself, and you can take it multiple times, or you take a picture of your art or of something you're doing, or you just like Facebook has a prompt, for instance, that'll say, what is it? Let's say something, or say something about your day, or update your status or something like that. And it's like, oh, okay, so I'm going to do this. But what you're actually doing is, whenever you do that, you can effectively make a fake environment compared to how and not an accurate representation of your life. Whereas with BeReal, the reason that it's kind of an exception to that is you only get one chance to take the picture, and the whole point of it is that it's happening now, and you have to take it now, no matter what you're doing.
Very interesting. Yeah, I noticed that's a problem with a lot of social media, and people have mentioned this at church and stuff like that. How people will get depressed or insecure or something like that because they look at like their friends on social media and they see what happy and fulfilling lives they have, and so then they compare that to their lives and they feel insignificant. And speaking from personal experience, of watching people on social media have such these great times, and comparing yourself, I don't think that's good. It's not healthy. It's not right. And from personal experience, it's kind of an illusion. They document their fun times, but I guarantee their lives are not all fun times.
I mean, yeah, is there anybody on Earth who's ever had a life that was all fun times?
True.
I mean, to show it that way is just human nature. Like, that's what everybody wants, is this is my life. It's good all the time.
Yeah, they wanna look popular. It's natural. It's natural to, as humans, to seek attention. Me personally, I'm not this anti social media guy. I do have Facebook, and that is it. And I have limited myself solely to Facebook, mainly for family connections, and purposes like that. But in general, I have a strong sense of, I've encountered too much bad on most social media where it's not worth it for me. Because many have argued with me that there are good things that can come with social media, and there is. You know, guys doing Christian content, sermons that are easily accessible and stuff like that, and I agree with that. But you don't need several different social media platforms if that's your goal. And just the more social media you have, from my experience of seeing people, the more time you waste. In fact, when I first got Facebook and discovered the whole like Reels thing, I would like get lost for hours watching like short little videos, and that's also one of the reasons social media can be a negative influence, in my opinion, is that it takes away so much time. In fact, I have a Bible verse right here. Ephesians 5:15 through 16 says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil." And I think this verse just encourages us to be discerning of our choices and to use our time wisely. And from personal experience, I don't think that social media is something. If it takes away, if you use it and it takes up so much time within your day, then I don't think it's good to have around, because it can also be a gateway for a lot of sin. Again, from personal experience, temptation. Most of social media is sexually charged, and even the stuff that's not. Like at the end of the day, if you weigh it, I think, and I have seen more good than evil when it comes to most social media. Like I said, I'm not completely anti. I just think, just like with everything else, it need to have it like in moderation, and also come at it from like a wise mindset. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not anti social media either. I just personally don't use it. The only reason that I chose to mention Be Real is because it's kind of, I mean, it's not new anymore, but when it came out, or when it first started, however you want to put it, it was kind of a big thing because it's like, oh, it was, if I remember correctly, it was like right post COVID kind of thing.
Mhm.
And it was like, okay, because after post COVID or during COVID, right, not everybody, most people were quarantined, right? So they would go stay in their
Yeah.
house and, they would do the things you do. You are on your phone, I don't know what else. I don't know what else y'all did. I personally hung out a
Uh,
lot with my friends online, but I mean, people are doing just stuff like that, and then it drew people to go more to their devices, and
yeah.
not even just devices, but especially social media because they couldn't go out and talk, like literally go and physically see their friends.
Yeah.
So Be
Yeah.
Real came out after that as not necessarily a solution, but there was like a big, if I remember correctly, during and right after COVID, there was like a big anti-social media like spout bit. Do you remember that at all?
I don't think I did.
No, maybe not. You probably don't watch the news as much as our parent or my parents did. But for me, there was a lot of stuff that I saw. It's like people, basically, people decided there were a lot of studies done, I guess rather, during that time,
Hmm.
to the point that there's a lot of, if you go online, there's studies, and people will also, or instead of referring to it as social media, people will refer to it as isolation media, which I have actually, when I went to Bob Jones University for an EduCamp, definitely would recommend any of you listening. Uh, we, I went for a biblical worldview camp, and one of the professors that came in, I'm failing to remember his name right now, but basically his entire degree, his entire doctorate, was the study of social media and radio, any sort of digital outreach and information spreading, and he referred to it as isolation media as well. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something actually to this. But going back to my original thought process here, after all those studies were done, and they more or less proved that it was bad for you. I mean, they didn't let me put it this way, people will disagree that they actually concluded that it was or was not. But
Hmm.
it really did. So Be Real came out after that, and it was new because everything was different. It was designed differently because it was designed to show your life accurately as opposed to making what the heck, as opposed to making a place where you can show how you want to be. and it made it less isolated and more actually social.
It's the name Be Real.
Exactly.
Interesting. I don't know why I've never heard of this.
I don't know why you haven't either. Actually, that's kind of surprising, especially because we have like the same friend group and all the guys have Be Real.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, like literally everybody, pretty much everybody we know has Be Real.
I think that's like a social media that I can get behind. But I had, when I went to Bob Jones University for another EduCamp, I went to two different ones, computer related. One was on computer hardware, and one was cybersecurity. They're both great. Both I had the same computer professor teaching us, and he was a cool guy. But the best way I can describe it is because he had so much knowledge in computers, he also knew the flaws with them, especially in relation to people. So he knew the in and outs of a computer, and he knew all the things there is to know. Uh, and but he definitely, like, he was talking to us like in a way of warning us of these things. We were learning, hands on about these computers, but at the same time, he was like, there's so many negative things that can come with like the internet. Of course, there's a lot of positive things. Communication is easier and more convenient than it's ever been throughout history. And of course, the spreading of encouraging things, that which is good and pleasing to God, you could say. But the problem is that it's so saturated with evil, like all things are, is that the internet is a breeding ground for sin. And you can say that just about anything. I've definitely been using computers and devices for a lot of my life. And the more I learn, the more I grow, the more I notice just how bad it is. Of course, I'm not like, oh, Amish, don't have anything digital or electronic. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in order for us to be, just need to be more aware of just where the devil's at. Because he's everywhere, especially in the internet, in my experience. And if we're more aware of that, I think it can just help us. Because awareness in of itself is a great tool when you're in any situation, in my opinion. But yeah,
I mean, how can you know what's going to happen? How can you know that something is bad, or even if a choice is neutral or good? You can't tell that if you don't have information and if you just don't know. Like,
yeah. Let me see. Okay, so this is a Bible verse that I have actually posted on my wall because I did that recently. I kept on, in fact, I mentioned this in the last episode with Aramis, and it was, me trying to read the Bible more and how I struggle with that. So I printed off these Bible verses that I was going to stick on my wall to kind of remind me to read God's word. And I had them. I finally printed them off after weeks of them sitting on my computer, and I shoved them right here on my desk, and I didn't touch them for like a week. And then finally, the other day, I started hanging them up on my wall, and I was like, "Oh, hopefully this can help me remember." And it has so far. It's helped me remember to read the Bible daily. So I'm grateful for that. And one of the verses I have is Philippians 4:8, a very, very good verse in my opinion. And it says this: "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things." And there's multiple translations for these two verses, for this one verse. But it is so important, I think, because, things in this world that are negative, that doesn't mean they're sin. There's so many things in this world that isn't sin, but at the same time we should just be not paying attention to, or just ignoring, or steering away from, because there's so much more we could be doing with our day, and even not even on a Christian perspective, just on like a secular perspective. There's so many more things I can be doing than thinking on this meaningless stuff. And I definitely think that applies to social media and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, I think one of the main reasons that if you ask people, why do you have social media? Why is it so important to you? I think one of their main responses to that would be for communication with those I care about. And I agree with that. I'm all for that. I think that everything else can just be a big old distraction when it comes to like videos and posts and memes and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big meme guy, but I feel like too many people, especially younger people, will spend hours and hours on their phones scrolling through a page when at the end of the day they've lost hours of their life and they can't ever get it back. In fact, I experienced that today. I guess you can call it, I was watching TV, specifically Netflix, and I was watching this comedy show I like. And then I realized I spent like 3 hours watching TV when I should have been doing something more productive with my weekend. And I was like, I felt so bad after it, and I still do, because it was just a fat waste of my time. And it's not necessarily that it was a sin, but I did feel ashamed because God has made us, has so much better things planned for our lives than to just waste 3 to 4 hours watching TV that ultimately did nothing for you. So that's my view on it. In fact, there's
I mean, good.
There's this one verse that I found that actually kind of goes with that. What I was saying is 1 Corinthians 6:12, which says, "I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything." This is in one of Paul's letters where he's kind of counteracting the argument that I have the right to do anything, which is the entitlement that a lot of people have today. Just because there's stuff that's just not beneficial. And you shouldn't let stuff in your life dictate you. I see phones and just any other, digital thing as that can be an addiction. I've known a lot of people, especially younger people, who are glued to these phones, and they waste so much time on it when they could be doing something so much greater. And they have, of course, a right. I guess you could say, there's nothing wrong with them necessarily. They might not be sinning, and so okay, you can have your phone.
That's debatable.
But at the same time, what have you accomplished with that phone? In my opinion, it's more of a tool than a toy. Mother's saying, "Tool, not a toy. Don't touch it."
I mean, hammer's a tool, not a toy. But you give your kid a toy hammer. Bro has no idea where I'm going with this. All right, if you're here's something that I've noted, because like I've grown up in homeschool groups, so I've seen kids significantly younger than me, significantly older than me, right? Or like not necessarily per se growing up, partially growing up, but in the same groups doing the same things, at least as much as a 5, 10, 12-year-old can do in comparison to a 15, 17-year-old, but what I've noticed is like younger generations, specifically like the age right now that is currently in middle school, and I don't know if this is statistically accurate or not, but I believe they have the highest, if not one of the highest rates of generations for digital addiction and also like depression, specific like cause from that. But it's interesting because like, for instance, when we grew up, when we were in nursery, right, what did we play with? What toys did we have? We had like, we had some toy trucks. We had like, the little wooden things you put in the, like the little puzzle things that just had like the shape or the animal or the farm
Those
or whatever
things.
you put it in the board, right? We had those things. We had
Personally, when I was a kid, I didn't have all the cool toys that they had because I wasn't like my mom homeschooled us all. She was, homemaker, so we stayed at home most of the time. When we did go to a nursery, the other kids like during some kind of Foothills meeting or something, we would have some kind of little kid toys. But when I was young, okay, so we were poor, but like we still had like some good toys. Like Legos were a big thing. But when I was like super young, I think it would just be I had some stuffed animals, and I would make them fight each other. And I also had, of course, sticks in the yard, which were my weapons.
Of
So
course.
yes, in fact, during I was just a few years ago in our old co-op back at Earls Grove. The nursery in there had a lot of like boys that we just left there over the weeks for of course the daycare for people to stick their babies in and watch them and have them play with the toys. And one of them was that it was like plastic and it was like the shapes that you put in the holes. And it
Put
was
it all in
so
the square hole. What do you mean, bro?
yeah, that was wait what?
It all goes in the square hole.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I've seen the video where he talks about yeah.
It's all the square hole.
Is all the square hole. True, all of them do fit in the square hole.
Yeah, so going on with where I was gonna go with this, right? Like that's what we had.
Yeah.
Or like another, and when I'm referring to nursery, like obviously I was also homeschooled. I didn't grow up go into a nursery. The only time that I did was gonna be, or would have been at church. When your parents are in service and they drop you in nursery, and then you play with all your friends, and you're the most happy child ever until they take one of your toys.
Yes.
Right, because that's just how it goes. But like I remember, let's see, we had like a toy, one of those Gerber toy kitchen things in there. We had obviously stuffed animals because every 2-year-old loves stuffed animals.
Yes.
It's just how it goes.
Yes.
We had like, I think we had like a toy guitar and a little xylophone and stuff like that. But now these kids are growing up with like
iPad.
Like you got like well, I'm not even talking about going that far on it, but those like okay, let me put it this way. Like back when we had like a little rotary phone thing, and it would make sounds and stuff when you did it. And like as it got a little bit more advanced, they could talk a tiny bit. Like they would have a couple of lines or something that it could say. But now you have like full interactive technology for young kids.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen those? What are they called? I can't think what they're called, but they're like little Play Pal robot things that you get for your toddler, and like talk to them and stuff, and basically function as another human to them because they can't perceive that as we perceive it. You got stuff like that, and then you have like now we have like literal kids smartphones. Like they don't hook up to the internet and everything necessarily.
Yeah. But it's getting them used to the
from the mental
of a
perspective.
smartphone.
It's exactly like I also distinctly remember like this was like probably 4 years ago. There were a couple of kids. They were like probably 10, maybe 7, 8, 10, somewhere in that range. I'm not exactly sure. And what they would do is, I remember them playing Terraria, obviously because amazing game, on their iPad, right? And then their mom would have an issue with their phone, right? And this 10-year-old would diagnose it, and it would be right. I couldn't do that when I was 10, bro. Like, what? I was pretty computer savvy, but I couldn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, just when I was...
It's a whole different thing. It's like they're being not trained, but they're used to it.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was younger and I saw these kids, like, pitching a fit, and the mom or their parent took away their mobile device or something, they'd freak a fit. Like, what?
And then their parent gave it back. And you're like,
possessed this child. Like, what? It's just, yeah, and a lot of times the parent will give it back. In my experience, I've had a lot of parents that I've seen that are like, no. And they just scream and scream and scream. They're like, no. Just no.
Yeah, like,
I was like,
you can't...
a little too late for that.
You can't really give it back either, because like then it's not teaching your kid that, if you complain and whine and do whatever
then they're just going to keep complaining and whine.
Yeah.
The classic bratty kid conundrum. It's I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't say much, but I definitely know that I've worked with enough little children, little babies, that you could say that it's just you don't want to spoil them in anything. Same with like pets. Same with anybody or anything, that's living.
Specifically
You don't
cats.
want to spoil it. Cats too. Oh my word. We have cats. The secret to getting our cats to be so well behaved that they are is the fact that they're semi-feral, and so they just live outside on the porch most of the time, and like when the rare occasions where they will be let in, they're like so grateful that they don't want to be catty and bite you or scratch you because they know you're gonna throw them outside. So they're very well behaved. They're not like entitled cats, which is most cats. So it's definitely sad. They're getting old.
Fear.
Yeah, I wish we had more of them. They're just all old. Meaning more of those cats. When those cats die, we're gonna need more mousers.
Oh, I was gonna say I think Pastor might have a issue
when you
with that.
when you live on a farm, you kind of need some rat hunters, which is what cats were intended for since the start. So that is their purpose.
Technically, cats were intended to be prey hunters, and then we were just like, we're gonna breed cats so we can have them as little demon pets. No, I'm not against cats. I just know a lot of people that are. I think it's funny.
Yeah, I'm not anti-cats because
I
like dogs better because they're just more cute in many circumstances.
And entirely true.
And also, they have more uses than a cat. Like, think about it. The dog, one, is the most loyal companion. Always going to love you. Especially if you treat it right.
You say that like a cat has a use to begin with.
I mean, for the one purpose they have, and that's for hunting rats. But if you don't use them for their intended purposes, then they're just dead weight. So people who have pet cats and don't use them to hunt rats and mice, then what's the point?
Yeah, I agree.
Let's get a dog.
I mean, we have...
personally,
we do not have any cats, but we have like 3 feral cats that just kind of exist. We're like, oh yeah, y'all can chill here. We don't care.
Yeah.
I got 0. If you want to exist and like hunt all the mice for us, that's great. That's just free mice. Free mice, go on.
You need a dog. That's what you need, especially on your new property.
No.
Next time one of ours has babies, we'll give you one. Purebred Great Pyrenees, the best dog you can have. They will literally kill anything. At the same time, they're really nice, especially around livestock. They're livestock guardians.
Yeah,
they're really great with
kind of person.
Really great with people and children.
I mean, yes, but also
they're adorable as all get out.
I agree with that, but they're also super furry, and I'm allergic.
You're allergic to dog fur, bro. I'm
allergic
to
long-haired dogs. Short hair. Actually, no, that's not even true. I'm allergic to all dogs now. I think.
Don't even get a Chihuahua. Don't even dare.
I would get a Shih Tzu if I had to. If I had to get a dog or a pug. I love me pugs. I would exist.
Pugs, wow.
I would exist with the pain if I could have a pug.
Let's get the heavy assault pug, aka the bulldog.
Yeah, but they're not cute. Pugs are like adorable.
Seriously, wow.
I see how it is.
I like the bigger dogs that have more use. That can actually like defend me if I needed them to.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree with that. But I'm allergic to bigger dogs, and you can't. You do have to admit that pugs are absolutely adorable.
Hypothetically speaking.
I'm assuming it's a cute pug and not like an ugly pug, because sometimes there are just ugly pugs.
Yeah, they're super ugly ones.
Bro, so mean.
Anyway, back on topic.
Back on topic. Where were we before we got on this little?
I think it was like the subject, which was like modern media and what can be negative influence. Okay, so I'm just gonna spit this out there because a lot of y'all are probably like wondering whether I'm going to say it or not, and that is musicians or artists, if you want to call them, being all demonic nowadays, like literally dressing up as demons and stuff like that, straight up like mocking God or like doing an upside down cross or something, or crucifying themselves on live television. It's like it's really bad. Specifically, I don't know if you've heard about any of this. It's been on the news, I think, a lot. But years ago, Lil Nas X, which is a rapper guy, big famous, but he did this thing where he made a music video that was about him giving a lap dance to the devil in hell. Not only is he mega gay, but it's also really demonic because it's like showing the demon in like a mocking way, showing God in a mocking way, and it's just like getting people used to demonic things. In my opinion, I mean, you might say, "Oh, that sounds very, extravagant," and you would say that, just because there's a demon in a music video doesn't mean that, you know, it's demonic. But at the same time, if you are dressing up like a demon, I'm sorry. I don't care if it's ironical. It's I don't agree with that. Uh, same problems with Halloween, but we'll talk about that in a later episode. Hopefully soon, seeing as it's pretty much fall now. But Lil Nas X, Taylor Swift, one of her newest music videos is her dressing up as like this weird witch demon thingamajigger, and it was just. I mean, first off, I've never been a big fan of Taylor Swift. I have relatives that are like diehard Taylor Swift fans, and I don't know what you think about her, but in my opinion, she's bland music. Not gonna lie, not the best musician. I just gotta say, but what's worse is that when her her actual what she says, like she'll claim that she's a Christian, and yet she'll go around in her music videos talking about LGBTQ pride stuff, and saying that God's okay with it, which is heretical and blasphemy. Uh, then there's then of course the whole dressing up as a demon, and like showing it out. Oh, it's the new hip, the new cool, the new fashionable to be a demon. What are your thoughts on those things?
I mean, I agree. One thing, I also am not a Taylor Swift fan for any of you Swifties out there. But then again, I'm not really a big music person in general. So now, don't quote me on this, but I believe at one point, this is going on the subject of Little Nas X for a bit. I believe that he also came out with whatever with Nike, came out with a shoe that had a drop of human blood
Yes,
in it.
yes.
Like,
Demon
bro, why?
shoes, black
You could
and
have
red
given you
demon
could have given that
shoes.
to the child that needs blood, but no, you put it in a shoe. But
Really
like,
like
seriously though,
culty demonic stuff.
yeah, like in all seriousness, what give me one valid reason why you would need to do that? Why you would have any reason to do that?
There is none other than demonic influences in
Even
people's
if you're
life.
not doing it, like even if you're not doing it as a demonic influence or anything, or because you think it would be that way, if you're just doing it to get popularity, there are other ways to get popularity.
Yeah,
And I will admit, I do also kind of believe that a lot of the stuff like that people do is to get the subgroup of society that are into that sort of thing, like the not necessarily the cultists, but like the how what would be a good way to put this, like the more like softcore question mark people
softcore.
that kind of like a softcore, like you like watching stuff that includes demonic activity, uh you like partaking in media that involves that. Like maybe you do your own little occasional Ouija board shenanigans or
I
something like
call
that.
that I call that all demonic. You're you're
I mean,
you're a
yeah, that
cultist.
that is demonic. But I'm saying like there's this is partially not from my direct experience, but from experience of my parents and other people, that there is a line between you're a cultist and you're doing something demonic. Because like for instance, when my mom was younger, and my mom is like, old, like this is back in the
Bro,
day. This is back before the turn of the century. Like this is 80s probably. They would, or her and her friends would, like, use a Ouija board just for fun. I mean, are they doing that because they're a cultist and they're trying to summon a demon? No. They're doing that because, oh, this is fun. This is unusual.
yeah.
And then you have people that are like actively trying to summon a demon.
I mean, and that's how, Satan's always worked in the past, is like tricking you. The very first sin, tricking you to think it's innocent, or it's not that big a deal. Like with the whole Adam and Eve in the garden, he's like, surely you won't die. It's not that big a deal. It's just a little innocent. You're just eating the little forbidden fruit. And that's what he's been doing since the beginning of time with everything. So, I don't think I told you the story about my mom's experience with the Ouija board. What?
Not that I know of.
I've mentioned it on, I think, last episode or the episode before last, the Aramis, because we were talking about a similar subject. And basically, short version is my mom, she just came to Christ, and her younger sister and her friends were in a room playing with a Ouija board, just because it's this innocent little fun thing. And they went out screaming of the room, saying that they heard my mom's dead dad speak. And so my mom, of course, yelled at her little sister, saying, "Why would you be so stupid?" And then she went in there and then prayed over the room, because when people have these mysterious and frightening experiences, it's a literal demon. Like, you can't speak to the dead. That's not how it works. They're dead. They're either in heaven or hell. So when you think, even if you're so sure that you're talking to a dead loved one, you realize the demons know more than you do. They do know more than any one of us could know. And so, of course, they're going to deceive you into thinking that you're communicating with a dead family member. But my mother prayed over the room, and essentially doing like a little, redneck exorcism. And it ended like that. But I think that's how the devil works, making it seem like something is innocent. And I'm not saying that necessarily. Say hypothetically, like the Ouija board didn't really have a true connection to the devil, which, in my opinion, it does, just by all the experiences that people have with them. And I don't think it's just because you said, they're not. Most of the people aren't seeking out to summon a demon or something, but it is just a thing. The act of it, there's nothing God related to it, and there's nothing really secular about it either. Because it talks, it has to do with, spirituality. So even if it's not directly demonic and you're doing it just because, this fun little innocent thing, it still is, demons trying to manipulate you. But people roll their eyes at me all the time saying, you're overthinking this. But the proof that I've seen and heard from all these people's experiences and the stuff that I've seen in my life and just reading the Bible, Satan and his demons are all over. They haven't changed. In fact, they've, their influence hasn't lessened any. They are they're continuing to grow everywhere. They're all around us in every single thing in the world, unless it's, directly connected to God or has something to do with Christianity. But even Christianity, he attacks. Like me and brother Aramis, brother in Christ Aramis, talked about in our last episode, like the Catholic Church as a whole, like the papacy. There's been so much corruption in that because Satan has directly targeted them, and he targets every Christian. But there's been so much corruption in the papacy throughout our history that it's because of course, men's natural sin, but also by deliberate attacks from the devil. Anyway, that's just my thoughts about it.
I fully agree with that as well.
Especially, don't want to. Yeah, I'll talk about it next time. But Halloween, that is a big thing because I have personally researched over the years as a specific thing in my studies, as a just recreationally, also as my spiritual walk. I think my expertise is more in mythology, because I've done so much research on it. So mythology, history, and stuff like that. So when it comes to Halloween, I've researched it over the years. I know all the ins and outs as far as like origins of it, why certain practices are done, and how those practices started. And I definitely want to do that in the next episode soon, because it is very important, I think, for other Christians especially to be aware of just how bad Halloween is. Of course, everybody has their own views on it, and their argument that I hear all the time is, "Oh, it's just dressing up and doing candy." But yeah, we'll get into that next time, because yeah, I have my own views based on what I've seen and researched. I think will be beneficial for everybody here. Just like have an open mind about it. Even if you think that Halloween is okay and you celebrate yourself personally, I would definitely recommend just having an open mind about it. Because I'm not like, I have so many friends that are good Christian people that quote unquote celebrate Halloween. That I'm not attacking any of them, but I definitely recommend hearing some of the juicy facts that I have pulled out for next time. Just out of
really
curiosity.
Go ahead.
You're saying?
You go.
No, you go.
Okay, fine. So even like you should always have an open mind about everything too. Even if you're generally like I shouldn't say that. The only time that you should not have an open mind is if somebody is trying to tell you that or that like the resurrection didn't happen or Jesus didn't exist or something related
Amen.
to that nature. That's the only time that you should have a closed mind. But
Yeah.
with every other thing, even down to what's a good example? Uh, even down to like aliens. I think we should have an open mind about that
Yeah. Yeah.
because the possibility is there. Is it true? And are they actually beings from somewhere else? I mean, they could be demons. They could be. I mean, technically, they could be angels, but that seems improbable. But the point is, even things that like generally Christians do not accept, we should
Yeah.
still make sure we have an open mind on these subjects because we
And
don't know.
that's
We just don't know.
that's the problem that like the Pharisees and the Sadducees had, is that their hearts were closed off their representation of the Messiah, their representation of God, that they didn't have an open mind about the possibilities that could still happen in the world. And I think that's important, because we do not know. Like, we can never say for certain I know this, because we're not meant to know everything. And so to say that you know everything is very cocky and ignorant. But like aliens, we've talked about it before, not on the podcast. It is an interesting subject to talk about. But in
Yes.
short, we might talk about it in length in another episode. But in my personal opinion, just to make it quick, whether there are or not, I still have an open mind about it. I think, in my personal opinion, if they are real, if aliens are real, then they're more of a created being rather than a spiritual one, I would say. And even so, whether spiritual or physical or created or whatever you want to call it, I don't really care what they are, as long as they don't have anything. As long as I don't think they're important, unless they interfere with our Christian walk in God. There's not really. You can think about them. They're fun to think about. It's fun to have an open mind about it. But at the same time, does it change anything? I don't think it does. Whether you believe aliens are real or not, I don't think it really changes anything.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only reason, and just because like for some of you that might be like, oh, why would he just randomly mention aliens? The only reason that I chose that as something to mention is because I actually had somebody that I work for mention the subject, and I was like, okay, because apparently, and I didn't know this until he told me this. For instance, a few things have happened. There's been like some meetings and stuff that have gone on right with the government, and they're like, yeah, we have, and people ask them about aliens reporters and whatnot, and they said that they have literal biological matter of aliens that
Yeah,
you can. I'm
I
sure you
heard
could look
something
it up
about
if you
that
really
on the
wanted to.
news. Yeah, some
Yeah,
people have been freaking out about that.
I also heard that the Prime Minister of Israel was also asked something of this nature, and he said that he had actually talked or like physically conversed with aliens.
Yeah, I heard about that also.
So that's the reason that I chose to mention that particular
Yeah.
subject at this time, because it's been on the forefront of my mind, and there's a lot of stuff that's coming out about it. And it's also a subject that most Christians, even really honestly, now that I think about it, most people, unless you're like in a research field or are like, I don't want to use the term nerd, but if you're like somebody who has interest in that, it's not something you would normally think about until something comes up.
Which is, especially when you consider, quote unquote evidence, and like the whole fact that a world leader says that I have personal dealings with an alien. I am very skeptical of that, of course. That's just who I am. But especially when it comes to aliens and people claiming that they see aliens. I mean, you know, if you look back, somebody claimed to saw an angel, and then boom, you got Mormonism. So people will claim to say a lot of things, but that doesn't make them any more true, in my opinion, unless I see like some hard evidence.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, you might say, "Oh, you can't say that. You believe in God." Well, a lot of evidence to prove. In fact, there's more evidence of creation in Jesus than there is of evolution. And
That's
I will
another good topic.
gladly debate with anybody who would like to debate me on that. Like, I will do it publicly. Like, if you're listening, or somebody that believes in evolution that might be listening, share this video, and I challenge you. I will debate you in good faith. In good faith, I wouldn't, to be rude, just a friendly debate, because there's been, in fact, I think not Parks, but a lot of people I know who have said certain things, because they were taught in schools that evolutionism is science.
Evolutionism, the belief in evolution.
Yeah. And if you think about it, it's called the evolutionary theory. And a theory isn't necessarily scientific law. It's not proven. Even if it did, it's not science, it's history. Like
It
the
is,
Big
however,
Bang theory.
taught as law, which is where a lot of
It
issues
is.
come in.
That's where my issue comes in. If you want to, it's fine having a theory. A scientific theory is just expanding, thinking of things scientifically. I totally agree with that. But if it doesn't meet the requirements of the scientific method, it's just a theory and not proven, because you can't really prove it. That's why it's called a theory, because we would never know how the earth began. Of course, we know, Christians who have read the Bible, which is an ancient text, that's like the most accurate text in history. So we have that to believe on. So we have a reason to believe in the point of view of creationism. Of course, other people don't have. They have a speculation of, okay, then this must have happened from an explosion of nothing, everything at the same time, which makes no sense. So yeah, we can do a separate podcast just solely on evolutionism.
Yeah,
a lot to go.
That would be a great subject.
Yes. Anyway, this is I don't know if I'm cutting you off or anything, but so far I think we covered the subject nicely. If you have any more questions, please let us know in the comments, the Q&A of this video if you're listening on Spotify. And yeah, we will review those. If you have any more questions, in fact, there's a link to our Facebook group for the podcast where you can send in topic suggestions, questions that you might have about, theology or just really anything. And we will be glad to talk about it, whatever it is. We'll come at it from a neutral perspective, and we will talk about it through, biblical worldview. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.